It's kind of wild to think about,
Yeah.
whole media empire built on like conspiracy theories
Right.
and making millions, and I mean millions, while peddling harmful lies.
Yeah,
It's like dystopian novel stuff, but
it really is.
that's exactly what we're looking at today. The story of Alex Jones in Infowars.
Absolutely.
How this empire, built on fear and outrage, well, kind of crumbled under the weight of its own lies.
It's interesting, because what Jones did so well, he didn't just tap into existing anxieties, he amplified them. It's like he created this ecosystem where fear wasn't just like a feeling, it was like a product.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. Infowars was a platform, sure, but it was also a business, and honestly,
Huh?
a pretty successful one. Supplements, survival gear, you name it, he was selling it.
Oh, absolutely. And we can't forget those survivalist kits, right?
Yeah.
All that prepper gear, the detox product. I mean, it was all
Yeah.
designed to make his listeners feel like they were constantly on the edge of disaster, always needing his solutions.
It was all part of this whole carefully constructed narrative. The world's out to get you. Only Alex Jones has the answers.
Exactly.
And it's in that space where people are already afraid, distrustful, that Jones throws out his most, well, outrageous claims. False flag operations, government conspiracies. He even went so far as to claim that the Sandy Hook shooting was a hoax.
It was a calculated risk, though, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
By tapping into those really sensitive, painful events, he created this emotional connection with his audience.
They were in on the secret.
Exactly. They were fighting back against the quote-unquote real enemy.
Which brings us to December 2012, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. Tragic. A gunman takes the lives of 20 children and 6 adults. The nation was in shock. And Jones's response.
Oh, he doubled down, claimed it was a false flag operation.
Orchestrated by,
By the government, of course,
Yeah.
all to justify stricter gun control. He even went so far as to accuse the families, the parents who had just lost their children, of being crisis actors in on this supposed hoax.
And we have to be clear here. This isn't just about, like, hurtful words. These accusations, they had real-world consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
Families were harassed, threatened. They were forced to change their lives completely, go into hiding, all because of these lies.
And that's where the legal battles really begin.
Right.
Right? 2018, the families, desperate for justice, for some kind of accountability, they filed those defamation lawsuits against Jones.
And it wasn't just about money. I mean, I'm sure that was part of it. But this was about holding him responsible for the pain he caused, exploiting their grief for his own, well,
His own twisted agenda, absolutely. And the fact that Jones refused to even participate in the legal process, wouldn't hand over evidence, wouldn't acknowledge the court's authority. I mean, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It really does. And it backfired big time. The courts in both Texas and Connecticut, they issued default judgments against him.
So basically, they ruled against him without him even being there to defend himself. I mean, the message is clear. Yeah. You can't just ignore the law, especially when you've caused this much harm.
And the damages awarded, over $1 billion. With a B. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist. This was,
Punitive.
exactly, punitive damages.
Yeah.
Meant to punish Jones for what he did.
And that's important to understand. This wasn't about making the families whole financially. It was about sending a message. This kind of behavior, this blatant disregard for truth, for basic decency, it has consequences.
$1 billion in damages. It's almost hard to even grasp a number that big. But it also makes you wonder, did Jones learn anything from this? Because, as we'll see, the story doesn't end there. So Jones is facing this mountain of debt, over $1 billion.
It's a staggering amount.
It really is. So what does he do?
Well, he does what many in his position try to do.
Yeah.
He files for bankruptcy.
Of course.
Classic attempt to shield his assets, protect his wealth, from the very people he harmed.
It's almost hard to believe. He builds his empire by preying on people's fears about a system that's rigged against them.
Right.
And then he uses that same system to protect himself.
It's a tale as old as time, really. And from a legal perspective, this is where things get interesting. Yeah. Because, bankruptcy can offer some protection, but it's not like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
And for Jones, well, it kind of backfires spectacularly, actually.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this isn't just about money for Jones, right? This is about Infowars, his platform.
His megaphone.
Exactly, his megaphone to the world. And, well, what happens next is kind of crazy. The bankruptcy court steps in and decides to auction off Infowars' intellectual property.
The website, the content library, the whole the whole thing.
Oh, wow. So who's going to buy it? It's got to be his supporters trying to keep the lights on, right?
You'd think so, right?
Okay.
But it's not just them. There's been some serious interest from, well, let's just say, groups with very different ideas about what Infowars could be.
Really?
Imagine for a moment a progressive media outlet taking over, transforming that platform into, like, a source for fact-based journalism.
Wow. That would be something. It's almost like poetic justice, isn't it?
Wouldn't it? This platform, built on fear, on division, reborn as this vehicle for truth, for accountability.
Yeah.
It would be a powerful symbol, a real-world example of how this battle for truth against misinformation is playing out right now in the digital age.
It's fascinating. But even with the future of Infowars, like up in the air, this legal saga, it's not over for Alex Jones. We still have that whole issue of those millions of dollars that he transferred to, well, a company owned by his parents.
Right, right. This company, Pqp Holdings, it was supposedly a legitimate supplier for, like, the Infowars supplements and stuff.
Supplements, right.
But the courts, they weren't buying it. They saw right through it.
Really?
Launched an investigation into whether this was just a blatant attempt to hide assets to keep that money away from the Sandy Hook families.
Wow. And this is what makes this case so compelling, right? It's not just about one man's lies. It's about the very real consequences of those lies and the struggle to hold him accountable.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
It really raises the question, can you even put a price tag on that kind of emotional distress, the fear, the harassment these families face?
It's awful.
The courts, though, through these punitive damages, they're sending a message. Some actions, they're so egregious, they demand more than just like a financial slap on the wrist.
Yeah. It's about justice.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So here we are sifting through the wreckage of Alex Jones's empire.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's tempting to see it as a victory, you know? A win for truth, for accountability.
Right.
And in a way it is, but it's also a story that leaves you with more questions than answers.
Oh, absolutely. Like, what happens to Infowars now?
Yeah.
I mean, does it just disappear? Or does it get, like, reborn under new ownership with a totally different message?
Right.
And what about all the people who believed in him? Who saw him as, like, this truth teller? Do they just, poof, vanish? Or do they find somewhere else to go to direct all that anger and distrust?
It's like this case, it's like it cracked open this Pandora's box about misinformation, about the internet, about everything.
It really did.
I mean, it's not like Alex Jones invented this playbook.
No, not at all.
He just happened to be the one who got caught.
He got exposed.
He did. He got held accountable in a big way.
And I think that's why this whole deep dive is so important. It's not just about, one man's downfall. It's about, like, really understanding what allowed him to become so powerful in the first place.
Right.
Because that hunger for easy answers, for someone to blame, it's still out there.
So where do we go from here? We can't just, like, snap our fingers and make it all go away.
No,
right?
No, definitely not. But what we can do, and what this case, I think, really shows us, is how important it is to hold people accountable. The fact that these families, they were willing to fight for years.
Yeah.
Deal with legal battles, death threats, harassment. I mean, that says something.
It does. It says that, if you try to profit from lies, if you exploit tragedy, you're going to be challenged.
You will be held responsible.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to just rely on the courts, on the legal system,
Right.
We all have a role to play here. We have to be more careful about what we see, what we hear, especially online.
We have to be smarter.
We have to be.
Yeah.
We have to recognize how people try to manipulate us, play on our emotions, on our biases. We have to be willing to look at different perspectives.
To admit when we're wrong.
Exactly.
Which is hard.
It is, but it's a process. It's a
Yeah.
lifelong commitment to really seeking out the truth.
Yeah. It's about being active, not passive.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Alex Jones, is it? It's bigger than that.
Much bigger.
It's about the kind of world we want to live in. A world where truth matters, where facts matter, where people are held accountable for trying to divide us, for trying to deceive us for profit.
It's a world worth fighting for.
It really is. And that fight, it starts with us. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the rise and fall of Alex Jones, we'll leave you with this. What role are you going to play in shaping the future of information?